Ano ai mikavilina a ke aloha. Aloha. We want to welcome you to this land, this vahipana of Kalahuipo'a. As we sit here on the lanai of the Eva Parker Woods cottage, a replica of a cottage originally built in the 1920s by the Parker Ranch. Built as a 3-bedroom guest house for visitors of the ranch and for some of its paniolo, its cowboys that would come down here and work in these fish ponds here at Kalahuipo'a, as well as catch fish here, the ocean fronting the cottage and this property, as well as having a little honey farm of Kiave honey here as well. We would like to welcome you to this virtual event, our Talk Story. For those of you that may be familiar with this event, some 23 years ago we started what we called Twilight at Kalahuipo'a, which was always set on a Saturday evening, which was closest to the full moon. And so through this pandemic, we had to rethink it. We still wanted to carry on that spirit of Twilight, but do it in a way that's safe. In a way that we could still get our mo'olelo, our stories, our music, and our hula out to an audience, and this time a global audience. And so we've started this virtual Talk Story a few months ago, and have been so fortunate and grateful to have amazing huakipa or guests who would join myself and my wife Anna here on the lanai on the porch of the Eva Parker Woods cottage. And we are here not only to celebrate Talk Story in Hawaii, but we are celebrating another special event which the Irish celebrate, and it's St. Patrick's Day. So, we would want to wish you all the St. Patrick's Day as well. But with me, I'm so honored to introduce a dear friend who has, people always come to me for knowledge and information of Hawaii and its culture. But the person that I go to and I seek knowledge is this man right next to me. His name is Kepā Maly. He's an ethnographer, a historian, did so much valuable work along with his wife Mauna in oral history and collecting stories from our kupuna, our elders, while they were still here. And we're so grateful to have him here to join us and to share this moment, this hour with us, through stories and through history and music and hula and many things. But before we start, we always like to open in a very traditional way with an oli, and also in our tradition is offering a lei, and this lei is a lei maile, a lei which in Hawaii we use for many things. But as you can see, Anna, as she gave Kepā the lei, she entwined the lei, which is symbolic of creating this special and spiritual connection. The maile lei is symbolic of the piko, or the umbilical cord. And basically, when the maile lei was offered, the ends were brought together and entwined to create this connection between the giver and the receiver. And the old folks would also say when the maile is given in this way and entwined, that the aloha, or the love in which the lei was given, will not easily fall away. And so I would like to ask Kepā, as in our Hawaiian tradition, would always like our kupuna, always welcome our visitors and people who would join us here within Oli with the chant. And if you would please honor us within Oli. Mahalo.
Heleo idela mau ka u heleo ikela ma kai opun o hama ema elau ka puale aloha ka nei du klau ai na ya ku ai no ai o puaku lai ka pule nai e ola ya ka uleo el makana o lo hawale no ai Emai, be welcomed. Yeah. Mahalo.
And that Oli,
This Oli and Kalamai, I had to paha a little bit because sometimes, kupuna say, lilo ka manaui ka makani. Suddenly your thoughts are stolen by the wind. And we get a little bit of that wai koloa paha blowing down with us today. So I had to ad-lib a teeny bit. But the main lines of the mele came from Tutu Ho'ohila Kawelo. Their lineage were of Kaula Pele, people that were associated with the priestly lines of Pele and ensuring the well-being of her people. And it speaks of traveling a path a great distance from the uplands of one Aina to the lowlands of another. Like a flower lei or a lei, we are here before you, pure but not perfect, and we're born, pushed along by the wind Pu'ulena, which blows from the land of the goddess. And the only thing that we really have to offer you is our voice, and we ask you in return, be welcome. So that's how kupuna, as you said,
yes.
Kumu, that, kupuna, everything was tied together in Inoa Aina, the names of places, the mele, passing kupuna down. Tutu Kawelo was born in 1893, and her tutu was still a kumu in the hula kuahu. Even though the kapu things had been set aside, they still maintained their mea ma'amau, their traditions and customs.
I'm always really amazed at our ancestors and how they were so very observant of things of nature and using all of their God-given gifts, the sight, the hearing, the smell, the taste, to put all of that into words and things that they experienced, and within these chants, these oli and the mele that were given, it just brings all of these things to life.
I'm probably a little biased, not a lot, but I honestly believe that Hawaiian, the Olero Makuahine, that native mother tongue of the Hawaiian people, is probably one of the most beautiful and poetic languages on earth. The words create images in your mind. I mean, it touches the spirit because you see, it's all connected to Akua, Aina, Kai, Ea, this firmament, everything that is around us, it's all one family, right? From mountains to sea, from one boundary to the next, Kahipaya, Kahipai. Yeah, there's nothing like it. In the mana, even if we're in the middle of a Honolulu jungle or somewhere, you know what? The kupuna's still there. That same breeze that kupuna breathed. Maybe get some added flavors now, but that same breeze is with us. And if you just listen, that's why kupuna, when you talk about kupuna and the ike, the wisdom that they've passed down, if only we will listen again. That ike was, he lohe keola, he kuli kamake. Listen, become observant, know what's going on around you, and you have life. But if you kuli, if you become deaf, and I liken it to also a blindness, a failure to see, to be observant of what's going around you, it's death, you know? We have to, and that's how kupuna tato, one olelo to another olelo, you know, one saying to another saying, and by doing, they don't go just say, oh, come, like this, baby, do this. No, na nakamaka, olohe ka pepea, pakawa, hana kalima. These kinds of sayings, so important, yeah? Watch with your eyes, observe, listen with your ears, keep the mouth shut sometimes, and hana kalima, yeah? You grew up with these, you know, you folks.
That
we
was
all,
the way.
yeah, that's how
Polole,
to do, folks. Yeah.
That's the way it was, you know, when we try and teach things today to people that have not grown up in the way we've grown up, and you know, I always say we were blessed and fortunate to have our tutu, our kupuna,
Aye.
still with us, our grandparent, my grandfather in this case, still with us to explain and talk about these things that they didn't go into detail. They just said, hey, you know, and sometimes they didn't even say, you just had to watch,
Aye.
you know, and to listen and try catch what you can.
Yeah, to be makaala, yeah.
Polole.
Yes.
And you see, that's one of the great
Aware.
values of it is you listen, you watch, you keep the mouth shut sometimes, you hana with the lima. But you notice when we were young, we heard the stories not just once. Lucky thing, what a blessing.
Yeah.
So two folks would talk, and then maybe we come back, and they would talk again. And for the one that said, you already told me that, pao, they're going,
yeah.
they're not
Yes.
going to. But by the hearing it time and time again, it becomes yours. Pa'a, iloko kana'au.
Yeah.
Set firmly here, ikamole, yeah?
Aye.
Right in your very core.
Yeah.
Lucky thing, yeah? Now,
Aye.
classroom, you get one less in pao, you're going somewhere else. No wonder our kids are hema.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So, you know, we were very fortunate to live at that time when kupuna were still here.
Yeah.
Many kupuna, and not only our kupuna, but other kupuna, they kindly shared their ike, their knowledge with us. And perhaps knowing that one day they won't be here. And that if this knowledge is not shared, that Wulilo,
Uanalo
or
wale.
Nalo Wale,
Yeah, lilo
It
it
iya,
will be
yeah,
lost
lalo
and
wale.
gone
Yeah.
forever.
And you see just what you said, even along this beautiful aina here, the ohana that lived and were connected to Kalahui Pua'a, to Puako, to Waima, to Anai Ho'omalu, to Mea. What's the next aina? Well, yeah, but you know, yeah, of this Waikoloa.
Anai
Why am I
Ho'omalu.
losing? Where did the Alapais?
Kapalawa.
Kapalawa,
Oh,
Kalamaya,
Aye,
Kalamaya.
Kapalawa.
See, I'm turning old too. So you know, but you know, these aina down to Kiholo
Yeah,
and into the Kekaha lands. Those kupuna who had been born in the 1860s, 70s, were teaching their children, the 19 teens and grandchildren, 19 teens and 20s, Hiki maya nakala, loli ka aina. Yeah? They knew that the day is coming because they'd seen so much change, so much loss in their time. They warned their own grandchildren, the day is coming that this land is going to be changed. And, you know, like Tuwainuke, he would say, you know, Maka'aya, he would say with Auntie Kiniha'a Keakelanima, you know, they all born in the teens, you know. And they would say, ole tutu, hiki ka'aina ke loli. They say, no, tutu, the land no can change. And now, when we were interviewing them 20 years or more ago, they said, polole kumako po ikupuna, ua loli ka'aina. The land went change. Our tutu was right. Yeah? But we can learn if we just listen to their voices. Yeah?
Yes. And I think that's why it was so valuable what you and Onaona did over these many years in spending time with the kupuna, with collecting their mo'olelo, their stories, the knowledge that they held and so kindly shared with with you both, and then for if not for that work that you did, it would be gone.
Some facets of it would have been lost. You are correct. But mahalo ke akua
Yes.
and mahalo I nā kupuna that they looked at me and said, this is one ano A character here. But you know what? I think they felt that the na'au maybe was okay. I pray.
Yes.
And what they did is with Onauna and I, by Ni'ihau a Hawaii, all of the islands, kupuna have willingly shared FAST's history. And then they share their history, and then we can connect it. Because, your kupuna were such prolific writers. We hear this not often enough about the great academic capacity of Hawaiians. Po'ekahiko, the ancient people, to memorize thousands of lines of genealogy, of ko'ihonua, of these, the cosmology, the whole creation. And that fragments of those things, then the Hawaiians, that by 1850, the Hawaiians were the most literate most literate nation on earth. More Hawaiians than Americans could read, write, and do things, even though it was completely foreign to them. Because their way of ha'imo'olelo, they would say, mai kahi piko, a kahi piko, a kahi piko, from one Pico generation to the next Pico to the next Pico. But kupuna were such prolific writers. So now we hear their mo'olelo, those who have been living, that we could kuka with, like the many that you and Anna have had the privilege of talking with. Even think of, Uncle Francis folks, like that, and Uncle Kenny Brown, them, those, even though fragmented, we can still connect it to the past. So that's what we do, yeah?
Yes, yeah. So, your life has been very interesting in a way that you were able to do this work. But how did that all start? How did that spark start in wanting to gather and collect?
I will say, I gotta say, by the grace of God, mahalo ke akua, because had circumstances in my own biological family not occurred, I would not have ended up on Lanai as the keiki ho'okama of the oldest native couple who Hawaiian was their first language, on Lanai, Tutu Papa and Tutu Mama Ko'opuiki. And because on Lanai, I was the odd kid out. Our graduating class was 32 students. In school, I was maybe only the other Haulians in school, right? And so I became hungry because it filled something that was missing in my own life. That's how. But Hawaiians have been such wonderful adopters, sometimes to their own detriment. But to folks, I'm barely a teenager, and I told Tutu Papa, because he was the kahuna pule in our church as well, yeah? I told him, Tutu, I want to learn to speak Hawaiian. So first thing he said, well, ho'omana'o I ka pule akahaku. That's the first thing he told me. Commit to memory.
Bible.
Yeah. Lord's Prayer. And from there we went on and the home conversations. But Hawaiian language is, as one of Onauna's kupuna put it, Apaka, yeah? Alfred Apaka's papa, them.
Okay.
So again, they were Pake Hawaiian, yeah? The old name was Afat, but Hawaiianized,
yes.
so they adopted, but they was Kapa, yeah, Pake Hawaiian. But old man Apaka, his daughter, who was 92 or 3 when we interviewed her, she said, my father always said, Hawaiian is the language of God. O ka olelo Hawaii, ka olelo ake akua. Just in the spirit, because it connects to everything. That's why when you himeni, when you sing mele, and then when your lovely wahine, hula, we have this poetic description of, is it making love? Is it love of aina, love of food, love of this living environment, this, biocultural landscape which gives all of us life? But it's all aloha, and this aloha is expressed through words first, and then the extension is your hula. And I was blessed to be able to grasp some of that growing up. And then I graduated from high school, nearly flunked, never go college, but now I've taught at UH. I've been on boards at Bishop Museum. We've created museums, or helped communities, I should say, create museums and ethnographic, because kua aina, yeah? We're just people of the backland, but sometimes those kua aina have the most logical. No need be all fancy any kind. Let's just get the story done, get the work done. Tutuya said, Tutu Papa on Lanai, he said, Maika ikahana akadima, ono no ka ayakawaha. When the hands do good work, the mouth has good food to eat. Perfect, right? You cannot beat that kind of knowledge. We need more of it today. Now, you remember Tutu Kinolu Kahananui here in Kona, right?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. So one day I'm sitting down with Tutu Kinolu, and we're talking story and about when he was a baby, young child, brought up with his kupuna Kahananui, only spoke Hawaiian too, right? And Tutu Kinolu only speak Hawaiian. I mean, he's most fluent, most comfortable in Hawaiian. And one day he tells me, Ka'o kupuna, a'o mai o ia'u, hana ino kalima, ai ino no kawaha. Think about it, yeah? This kind of wisdom that they have that, if you do dirty work with your hands, your mouth going to eat dirty food. Think about these lessons that we can learn. It's simple, straightforward. It's powerful. Now you got to go pay someone to get that kind of knowledge, right? But if two folks talk with you, lohe ka pepeau, yeah? Nana kamaka, pa'akawaha, hana kalima. Simple stuff. Now, Tutu said, yeah, kaula ikalima ikala, ohe wai wai. Yeah? Put the palm of your hand up in the sun, dry it like a fish. There's no value. Not even can eat the fish. No more fish, right? Huri kalima ilalo. Turn your hand down, work. Alaila lo a'oi ka'ai. Then you're going to have food. We need to reinstill these kind for our own opio, our kanaka oiwi. Reinstill that sense of pride and dignity. But everybody can come along for the ride. Your own kuku, and your uncle, like your father and your uncle. You look at what your uncle said in his statehood address at Kawaiaha'o, and talking about statehood and welcoming all of those who had come. But don't forget aloha. And his aloha wasn't just sort of, and forgive me if I offend anyone, but it wasn't just like, oh, go ahead, bend over and take it. His aloha, in his own message at statehood, he said, we are observant of what has been done to us, but aloha is still ours. And if we live with aloha, ola, yeah? And that aloha, I think, is what we can spread. And you are, that you've traveled the world sharing aloha. What a blessing, yeah? You and Anna, and just, so that's how my path started. Almost a opala kid, throwaway kid, end up on Lanai. And Akua led me to these kupuna, and these kupuna led me to, we have been with kupuna born at least 1880s and up. And, we are really at that brink now. When we were children, we were at the brink of your grandparents' time. But now we're at the brink where those guys born in the teens and 20s, do you realize now, hard to believe, yeah? If you were born in 1930, you're 91 years old now, if my math is right. But once we hit World War II, we're living history. We are making it and living it, but is our history pololoi? Is it tied to Aina, or is it a different history? Like, forgive me, and all of our people around the world that may be watching this, if I haven't talked too much or put them to sleep,
Oh.
But think about COVID,
Continue.
yeah? Think about our own response at times to it. Oh, it's such a hassle to wear a mask, or I go dance naked on the beach because I can with 1,000 other people, But this kind of pandemic, this ma'i ahulau, Hawaiians knew what that was. Pandemic, ahulau, ma'i ahulau, was nothing new to Hawaiian people. The moment Hawaiians were discovered by po'e'e, foreigners, the foreigners never discovered the islands, your kupuna did. But the moment Hawaiians were discovered by those po'e'e, that they foreigners stumbled upon the Hawaiians, the impacts of disease were immediate. Within 1 year, Captain Cook's crew, 3 days they got stuck on Ni'ihau at Keanahaki and at Kepā Maly plain across Ni'ihau. They couldn't get off the island because of storms, Naulu showers blowing in, right?
Yeah.
And what happened? They came back 1 year later, the gift that they'd given them, the kiss of the gods, clap, had spread across the islands. 1804-05, nearly 300,000 Hawaiians were killed in 1 year by one ma'i. You look at 1893, when Queen Lani was illegally deposed by primarily a group of Americans supported by 40 American Marines. There were 40,000 Hawaiians left on Earth. My goodness. So you think that anything that we have today that's left, oh, these are vai loa. Mea makamaya, they're treasured, cherished things. So we and all of our people, we can speak truthfully. We can speak with aloha, but as your kahu, Papa Kahu them said, we are aware our aloha, it's a way of life, not a business.
Yeah.
That's a big thing, I think. We gotta, aloha's not like a clothing we take them off and on. You live it, yeah? So anyway, kalamaia'u.
Yes.
And all of you folks, you got aloha. If you experience aloha, it will change your life. Yeah?
And and growing up with our family, with my tutu, my grandfather, my uncles and aunties, my dad, and even on my mom's side too, we little did we know how much things were going to change, because at the time when you're young, you always think things are always going to be there. That nobody's going to, people will always be here and never leave.
Yeah, you think apopo, yeah?
Yes.
Tomorrow can.
Leave it till tomorrow.
Yeah.
But we can see now that so many, have passed. So much
Oh, it's so scary.
knowledge is gone. So much, has changed. Even the language, has gone through change.
Yes.
Of our kupuna. We're so grateful that the language continues.
Aye.
The olelo
Aye.
Kuahine, olelo Hawaii. And when our tutu, as you mentioned, my tutu would always, when I asked about learning to speak Hawaiian, he would always say, hello, kapaipala.
Aye.
Read the Bible, the
Yes.
Hawaiian Bible. And I always at the time wondered,
No
why read the Bible? I mean, I have you here.
you.
Why read the Bible? He said, you want to learn the old language, read the Bible. And I think he was thinking beyond, his time,
Yes.
that the Bible will always be there. And when I thought about it, the Hawaiian Bible was translated and printed at the time, way back in the 1820s,
20s, 30s, 40s,
that
yes.
the old Hawaiian language was still in
Yes.
use. And so a lot of the old language was still there. The poetic
Yes,
language was
but
there.
we do have to admit that some of them guys was huikau, those missionaries. No,
yes.
but you know,
Yes.
polole. That's the same thing
Yeah.
Tutu said. Yeah.
Huiko is confused.
Yes, and
Yeah.
you know the thing about the older form of the language at the time that it was written or put to press is that it was such a poetic form that is different from today's what we refer to
yes.
as school textbook kind of
Yeah.
of Hawaiian. And you know, we realize that language transitions over time, and yet it's important to have and understand that older poetic prose of
Amen.
the Hawaiian language.
Yes.
And in the Bible, it is there that
Yes.
it is preserved.
Yes. Yes. And you know, you're so right about, again, that poetic and the prose. You know, nowadays the people often want yes, no. Hey, Tutu had no yes or no answers for most stuff. You ask something important, you know, they're going to tell you the story. You got to have the foundation. Why? Yeah?
I, you know, it's that understanding of that foundation
Yeah.
that the community had,
Yeah.
and the community helped to raise the child.
I
In
polole.
not just feeding, but also in disciplining.
Yes, yes.
And it was understood, you know, if you were a little kid when I was growing up and you did something wrong, even if your parents were not there, it didn't matter if it was your
Yes.
parents or not. Whatever adult was present, they're gonna, they're gonna help.
Absolutely. They're
correct
going
you.
to teach you.
They're going to teach you.
But you know, one of the other things, and you brought up a really interesting point, both of you, about language and the changes, and it is meant to be dynamic. But I feel very regretful when, you know, Onaon and I are always going through the native language writings that began really extensively by the 1830s. We've lost so much of that context. Yes?
Aye.
So what are you talking about? You know, I thought we were talking about this, but now suddenly we're talking about the red lobster that is filled with sand at Pau. You know, how'd that happen? You know? But a critical thing about the language also is intonation, those simple pauses. You have to also be excited. So I know I look a little crazy sometimes when I'm on camera, you know, because, you know, but you know, it's because you get enthusiastic, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's exciting, you know?
It's part of the dynamics.
Aye.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's good that the Olamon it is continuing in its way, and that our children and our future generations is there for them to pick up and
That's right.
to be nourished by.
And again, because kupuna were such prolific writers, if you just have that desire, you can go back and you become immersed in that period of time which connects us to prior to Western contact as they were speaking. You know, so it's not lost. And the kupuna knew that. I believe that that was one of the great treasures of their ike and passing down. Even though, you know, one of the preeminent, and tied to this aina here, one of the preeminent native historians of the, born, I think it was in 1805, if I recall, John Papai'i, from who, you know, Francis and Keni'i, you know, descend, right?
Aye.
He was a member really of the Kamehameha household as a steward. But imagine when he was writing his Mo'olelo, which has been translated by Tutu Kavena into fragments of Hawaiian history. One day I asked Tutu, Pehe oilo akela ino o fragments of Hawaiian history. Tutu, how did you get that name, fragments of Hawaiian history? Because I was just dumb enough not to be able to figure it out, you know? And she said, na ino. It was Ii himself. Ua kapa ia kona mo'olelo na huna no ka mo'olelo Hawaii. He called his own story at that time, writing in the 1860s, shortly before his death, fragments of Hawaiian history. Because even in his lifetime, he saw the fragmentation that was going on. But there's a beautiful chant, and forgive me, we really need to have some music and some hula, but there's a beautiful chant that Tutu Kavelo gave me, again from that Kaula Pele line. The last lines of the chant say, O imi o nalovale o loa ala e. Seek that which has been lost, and it will be found. And I believe that that is true. Kupuna knew. And this comes from a Pele chant that is pre-Westerners stumbling upon the islands. So, you know, you know, seek that which is lost. It will be found. It is this right of the descendants of the Oiwi. Yeah, it is love which beckons us to come. Aloha. Always aloha. Yeah?
Absolutely. Yes. And so, you know, as we talk about these thoughts and memories of our kupuna, and that, you know, we grew up learning not only the stories, but the music and then the hula. Which brings about a whole another facet of Hawaii.
Yes.
And the you know, from the stories and the songs, the mele and the hulas that capture those moments in time and set them into motion. You know, you yourself have been a composer in haku songs and mele, about some of the things that you grew up with and people that you grew and respected and wanted to just keep them in memory and memorialize them, you know, through in this way, through song.
And to pass their story. See, like you, we've heard the voices of some of these kupuna. Your mo'opuna now, so kupuna being our grandparent, our elder generation, our mo'opuna being our own descendants that are grandchildren, mo'opuna, kuakahi, kualua, whatever it might be, they will never hear those voices, but through us and through many others who are working across the Pai'aina, they will be able to hear and learn some of those fragments that have been handed down. Yes?
Yes. And so, you know, now we have our instruments with us, our ukulele, and perhaps this might be a nice time to share a mele with them. And
Sure.
I know you have a beautiful mele that you composed.
Well, if it's not hula time, we'll do one mele now, then we do hula time.
Yes.
Okay? And, you know, as we've been speaking this lovely evening at Kalahui Pua'a, we've been talking about the wisdom, the knowledge of kupuna, and things that they have to teach us, even though their physical presence is now gone from our lives. Their ike, their wisdom, the breeze that blows, those voices are still born on the wind. One of the things that I learned growing up, Tutu Papa said, you know, if you want, you gotta work, right? And so there was this beautiful saying, and I mentioned it earlier, about, you know, do good work with your hands, the mouth has good food to eat. The other one, like, don't put the palm of your hand up the sun, turn it down and work, then you're going to have food. So what I was doing was, when we were home working on Lanai with Haumana and creating cultural literacy curriculum, I composed a mele based on just sayings that I believed our children can benefit from. And this one is Pono Okahana, the rightness, the goodness of doing work. And so Tutu Papa, this is based on a little bit of a biblical side, but the primary thing is Tutu Papa's Olelo A'o, his informative, instructive sayings that he shared with me. So we're only going to do a couple verses, and you know I do not have your talent with this thing and stuff. So,
yeah.
Oh, you
and
have
all you
lots of
folks, if I
talent.
mistake, forgive me.
No,
You know.
no, I will be your follower.
E pono kamahi ai, e hana ia mahamua, o kaloa ana, o kahua ai. Ua o mai kupuna, e hana mai ka I kalima, aua ono ka ai. Akawa Aua ono kai Akawa E pono kamahi ai E hana ia mahamua O kaloa ana O kahua ai Ua o mai kupuna Mai kaula I kalima I kala Ahuli ka harima I lalo Aloha I gai Uli ka harima I lalo Aloha I gai. So the mele says it's needful for the farmer to put his hand into the soil and plant the seeds before you get harvest, right? Mm-hmm. Smart, right?
Yes.
And then it says, remember, Tutu, Kupuna taught us, do good work, you're going to have food to eat. Then it goes back, you know, it's remember now it's needful for the one who tills the soil. Now this can be the literal soil, but it can be any other facet of life, right? We're not going to have the benefit till we put the work in. So if you just do this, put the palm of your hand up, nele. Hoka, you're going to get nothing, yeah? That's what Tutu said. So that's just one of the, you know, over the years we composed a few good fun things that, you know, at least to
yes.
me, and we were so blessed because Waipuna actually recorded this on their last album. And anyway, you know, I'm a wannabe.
Well, you know, this preserves the wisdom of our kupuna in songs like this
Yes,
song.
yes.
And so it's wonderful that we can, you know, when the language is taught in schools, that the music would follow, would go hand in hand with that. And of course the hula as well would go with the song,
Aye.
the music. And within that we have the oli, the chants as well, you know, to complement
yes.
all of that.
Again, the imagery that they paint, you know,
Yeah, you
just
know.
even close your eyes and let the words, I believe there is a spirit connection.
Mm-hmm.
And you will begin to see this amazing imagery of faces, of people, places, you know.
You know, it makes me think of something that another kumu, Sean Kaimikawa, had shared. That, you know, in the oli and the hula, in the days of old, where they did not have the technology of today, that was the audio visual.
Absolutely.
So that was the
Yeah.
video tip. As you learn and you pass from generation to generation, those oli and those hula that accompany it, that's the audio video
Yeah.
of our kupuna.
Polole, and you know what's really, really interesting though? Sister said audio visual, because kupuna, at least what I learned from Tutu Kavena, Auntie Lokalia Montgomery, Auntie Alice Namakeluama, no words, no hula. It's always the extension, yes, but it animates, it gives life to the story. You can just, when you dance, Anna, we're on a journey with you. You know, we're there.
We're all on a huaka'i.
Aye, we are. And may our huaka'i be blessed. Yes.
Aye. Aye. It's
know-
always wonderful with you in Onauna.
Hey, mahalo ya olua.
Oh.
We're blessed with you too.
You know, whenever I'm doing research on things, you know, whether it's for guest of our hotel or other things, you know, I'm always, you know, trying to think and trying to find that knowledge and information. And then, you know, I'm so fortunate to have you folks that, you know, I can, that I can connect with to get that knowledge and information. And, you know, one of the things that I think, you know, when we look at like the land, like here we are at Kalahuipua, which is considered an ili kupono, you know, but we're in a larger land section. In this case, maybe not Ahupua, but in Okana, which has many other ili
Aye.
kupono like Kalahuipua, but it's known as Waimea, the Okana of Waimea,
Aye.
within the Moku, or the district of Kohala. But I think, you know, for a long time, many people looked at areas here that were so big, like Waikoloa, for example. You know, for a long time was looked at as an ahupua. And even I had to kind of think and ponder on that. And of course, you know, so I called upon you to get your knowledge based upon what you learned from the kupuna through your research and oral histories as to how these lands are divided and whether they were ahupua, whether they were ili kupono, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, you know, it's quite fascinating when you think about Aina and how the Hawaiians, you know, established their places of residency. And as the population grew, they expanded. And it became very clear that if you live in an island, and you can also liken this to the planet Earth now, our resources are, do I have this right? Our resources are finite.
Mm-hmm.
For way too long, we've thought of them as being infinite.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. So Hawaiians evolved, developed this amazing system of land management. You go from an area in the ocean to the fisheries. You go to the mountain peaks. And within the boundaries of these Aina, Ahupua, there are lands that were marked by altars upon which carved head of a pig made of kukui would be placed, and where tribute would be collected annually, during the makahiki for the high chiefs like that. Well, what happens is this evolved, and everything you needed to sustain yourself was within your ahupua. Now, it's very interesting, and you remember like Uncle Billy Paris or Akauma or others, they would say, you know, they heard the stories about that runners, kukini, actually were sent by the chiefs to run up a distance, and where one is cut off, that runner was tired, stopped. And the next one, that's why you have places like Kahalu'u, Keauhou, why you have Waikoloa. My goodness. You think about it. And not only are there ahupua, but are also all these smaller, there are all of these smaller land areas. And an ili is an individual land area within an ahupua where families might live and reside. But an ili kupono, what you mentioned, while the ili had to pay tribute to the chiefs, an ili kupono was a unique class of land that was entirely independent, no matter who the chief was. And as things changed, this kupono land belonged to those ohana, to that ohana. So it transferred over the generations, while other land might change. Now, but the amazing thing is that just along this coastline, these are all ili, not ahupua, because they have no mauka land, but they're attached to another ili, which is larger than the island of Lanai, where I grew up. Waikoloa is 90-something thousand acres in size. Lanai's, the whole island is only about 89. And Then Waikoloa is also an ili within the larger Waimea, as you said, the Okana or Kalana. Basically, this amazing land with multiple contributing features. But when you work as family, these guys have the pa'akai, the salt, the i'a. That's a cool word, isn't it? Pa'akai.
Yeah.
Think of how the Hawaiian mind works, yeah? Salt. So what is salt? Hard ocean water. Pa'akai, right? Oh, yeah, descriptive, yeah? And then the other guys get something on the Kula lands, the plains lands, like at Pu'uhina'i, where they had a wonderful growing area for uwala, for sweet potatoes and things. Then you go up further and you get into the Mauka lands where the kalo could be grown in a little damper areas, or where you could get the forest resources for the canoe that you need to fill that hale or halawa over there. Not going to grow down here, right? Anyway, a wonderful system of development.
Yes.
Now, I get the kind, I can talk too much.
Oh, yeah, no.
We gotta have mele and a hula, okay? It's time.
All right. I know Anna's been,
kuile over here.
Kuile and then kuile a lava.
Aye.
And
Hula
so-
mai oi.
so she's created this beautiful lei and utilizing
He mai la hula ike mahala o ni hau marie. A marie pa ka inu eila ke inu maila kalo na ke gai. No e kala no na ka hine. No kalua no iki as you lay yourself. Yes, you give this lay and you've got this opportunity to remember those things of the kupuna.
So I know we've been doing our talking and stuff, but an important person in the work that you do is right here on the other side, and we wanted to gift her with a lei that Anna
How
is
beautiful.
completing.
Mahalo nui. Onauna. Her name itself means fragrance.
Yes, and that she is
Sweet and fragrant.
the sweetest and most fragrant. Mahalo Nauna for your for come. Hi.
And
Yes, we have you here.
Onauna has a very interesting family heritage, and I know we kind of spoke about it briefly, but if you could touch on that,
Well-
because even for me, I wasn't very clear, and you helped to
Yeah.
clarify that for me.
As you know, all Hawaiians get plenty connections now
Yes,
because
yes.
you are the product of a handful of survivors. So on one side, it's Mahoi, Kahoika. The Mahoi were Ke Konohiki Okalani, served as Konohiki for Queen Lidu Okalani. On the other side, it's Kapukui, Kaiapa, and Kapukui became Pukui. Tutu Kavena Pukui was a relative of her own husband, distantly, but they were relatives. And Onauna's great-grandmother, Laie Ikawai Kapukui, was the full sister of Kaloli'i, Napoleon Ko'opuiki. And so she's got this genealogy of historians and adopted children of the queen, and so we're blessed that we have this connection, yeah?
Lineage.
At least I can claim to be, connected in that way.
Oh,
The
Well,
best kind.
you both make an amazing
We are
team,
blessed.
and
Amen.
and you actually
Just like you and Anna.
Well, yes, yes,
Who could have imagined?
yes.
We have fun.
We have fun
And
in
lots
what
of
we do.
patience are wahine get, yeah?
Yeah.
Ho'o manawa nui.
Oh, Manawa Nui. Well, as I guess we were,
Yeah. it's
this time is just
It's
holoka
time.
manawa, as we
Aye,
say, right?
aye.
The time has really flown by, and we should do perhaps a
Aye.
song and a hula before we say
Say
a hui ho
aloha.
until we
Ahui ho
meet again.
for this time.
And
Please.
we haven't thought through on what we're gonna do, but shall we just go ahead and do a song that we've done on other evenings like this? And then we talked about John Papa'i'i.
Yes.
We talked about Uncle Francis E. Brown, who was a prior owner to
Yes.
this land. We talked about Kenneth
Uncle
Brown,
Kenny,
Uncle
yeah.
Kenny Brown, who was a chairman of Mauna Lani, and Mauna Lani in its development of this Vahipana, these lands, and being very respectful to the story and the history of this place. So they were all a very important part. So we want to just do a song that honors, Francis E. Brown, and a song that was written about not about this property, but about a property in North Kona. We are in South Kohala now, so just a few miles down the coast from here.
The party house.
The party house
Party house.
at
Yes.
Kiavaiki. Yeah. So I think Anna's just clearing the stage
Alright,
here
good.
for her hula.
Hula dancer must move.
Okay.
Iyala.
Hey ala, he kono ua amai Kiavaiki. E kipa e nanea, e ho'ola kanaka, e pahaina i ho i me yakini. Ke ki aloha Hawaii, e puna hele ho i owe na mako. E nani a he olu i ono i a home i kai kai i laila oe e ola ai ke ki aloha Hawaii. He puna hele ho i oe na mako. Hey, hey la, he kono lua amai Kiavaiki. E kipa e nanea a e ho'ola kanaka. E pahaina ai hoi me yakini. Ke aloha Hawaii. E puna hele ho i oe na mako. E puna hele ho i oe na mako. E puna hele ho i oe na mako.
Yeah. So beautiful.
All right, a song in honor of Uncle.
Francis E. Brown.
Favorite part of the song in the hula is the honi. But you know, a song in honor of Uncle Francis E. Brown and all of our kupuna, all of our those that have come before us, and who have shared their knowledge, and through Kepā and Onauna, who have, received that knowledge and put it down into words and have preserved that for us. And you folks are such a gift, such a treasure to us, and we are so grateful for all the work and the work that you continue to do. And
With
yes.
you too.
Yes.
We Holomua.
We are
Yes.
all in this
We
together.
follow in your
We-
footsteps.
No. We kako together.
And so, as we come to a closing, on our twilight evenings, we'd always end with this song. And if you know this song, wherever you may be,
Please sing along.
a song that pays honor to Hawaii. Hey Hawaii, kuone hanau e,
Hanau e.
Kulai
iwine. Kula iwine.
Oli noa wina pono Lani o.
Alani o.
E Hawaii, aloha.
E hauoli e nā opi o Hawaii nei. Oli e, oli oli e, oli e, oli oli e. Mai nā ahe makani e pā mai nei, e pā mai nei. Mau ke aloha no Hawaii. E hauoli e nā opi o Hawaii nei. Oli e, oli oli e, oli e, oli oli e. Mai nā ahe makani e pā mai nei, e pā mai nei. No ke aloha, no Hawaii. Mau ke aloha, no Hawaii. Let the love of Hawaii always persist and be there. Love for Hawaii.
Ai,
Iola
amen.
kaha o Hawaii.
Aye.
And so we want to thank all of you for joining us this evening here, for joining us here at our virtual talk story. We'd also like to say mahalo nui to Kepā, to Mauna, to my wife Anna here, all of our children and grandchildren in the background as well who have joined us, and those behind the scenes that you couldn't see, but they're there, and we wouldn't be able to do this without them. So we want to say mahalo to all of them as well. And
John
of course,
and- yeah.
yes,
Keone and Susan,
Keone and Susan.
Allison and Forrest.
Yes, mahalo
Yes,
to all
mahalo
of you.
nui loa.
And of course,
Yeah, oko
mahalo
ako.
nui to our Mauna Lani, our
Aye.
beautiful Mauna Lani Auberge Resort Hotel, and to our ownership and management who greatly support this program and all of our living cultural programs that we do. And of course, friends of the future who have supported us over the many years.
Maika'i, maika'i.
So,
Many,
you know,
many years.
so many to say mahalo to.
Aye.
And e kalamai for those that I may have missed, but we thank you all.
Aye.
And so we want to say, as in Hawaii, we don't like to say goodbye, but we always like to say ahui ho until we meet again. And so, ahui ho kako until we all meet again. Aloha.
Aye,
Ai,
aloha.
ke ako pua hui hono kako.
Kako, aye, punole. And it's carried on the wind.
Aloha.